Good afternoon and welcome to our third of the four-part series, Fighting to Survive Local Marketing During the National Pandemic. We're happy to have you back with us again this week and to share with you the latest in our series. As a reminder, all participants are in mute. If you have questions as we go through, there is the chat functionality that you have in your control panel. Feel free to ask us questions as we go through. So with that, let me introduce the team that's with me today. So hopefully all of you remember me. My name is Laura Cole. I'm VP of Marketing for Vivial. With me today, Todd Renard, our VP of Digital Product Management, and Aaron Neese, Senior Director, Partner Channel. Thank you both for being with me. Their faces also are familiar, although I don't think the three of us have been together yet. So we're excited. And we're going to do a little different format today. So today, our focus, we've talked to you, we've given you tips and tricks about how to deal with these unprecedented times. Last week, we talked about content that you should be focusing on and the things that you should focus on your business. Today, we're actually going to take a look at some of the stats, what's actually happening in the digital marketing world. So first, we're going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on digital marketing. And we're going to give examples of how your business needs to pivot, how you need to change, how you need to be responsive to these times. And then lastly, we're going to answer your questions. So again, feel free to ask questions as we go. We've already gotten a lot of questions in ahead of time, which again, we love to see that. So keep that in mind for our last session, which will be next week. Keep those questions coming and we're happy to provide as much guidance as we can. So with that, Todd, Aaron, if you're ready to get going, let's take a look at our first stat. So our first stat, 73% of consumers want brands to continue to provide information about products and services. Okay, so I have to admit, when I saw this stat, I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a no-brainer, right? I mean, I think that we all know that consumers want information, but I think there's been, over the last, call it maybe 6 weeks, there's been this thought that consumers aren't buying and everybody's very nervous and very scared. Todd, as you see this stat, what do you think it means and how do you think businesses can respond?
Consumers are hungry for information and they have a little more time on their hands right now to look for it. And so this is a reflection of them wanting more information. And this isn't just information about the products and services, although that is a primary search that they're doing. This is also about what a brand or a business is doing in their community, what they're doing for their employees. People have a connection, and so they want to understand what the businesses are doing that they also feel a connection with, whether it's a restaurant, a dentist, a plumber, a retail store, whatever it might be. They're looking for information.
Right. Todd, I would also add to that is, you mentioned we're hungry for information. And, I know personally, I'm looking to see if my favorite restaurants are still doing like curbside pickup, or if I could still buy a gift card for my mom for Mother's Day. Mom, hope you're not watching. But basically, we're all still trying to go about as normal as possible. And we are just searching, looking for that information and able to do it.
Yeah, I always think of whenever I, I'm kind of uncertain, I always like to look at data, kind of the data geek in me to see like, what does the data suggest? And internally, us at Vivial, we have looked at, the websites that we manage and the traffic going to those websites, because the traffic headed to a website is a good indicator of, our consumer is still interested, right? Because obviously a website is kind of that core foundational piece for a local business. And really almost across the board, we are seeing, when you look at March versus February, website visits are up month over month. Now, that certainly doesn't hold true for every vertical. There are some verticals that have been more impacted than others, but as an example, auto repair is up, roofing contractors is up, tree service is up in double-digit growth, attorneys is up, daycares are up, right? So you think about, just looking at that one piece of data, and we can see across, the tens of thousands of customers that we work with, the impact is very real. So that is one stat that we like to see, that people are still continuing to go to people's websites to find out information. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our second stat. So our second stat is about mobile. So I think this stat's really interesting, Todd. And if I think back to last week, you teased this stat a little bit in our discussion that we had last week. So Mobile search traffic has decreased nearly 25% in March. Why do you think that is? How do you think businesses can respond to that?
Yeah, I think there's some things that are obvious, but I have to state them anyway. People are shelter in place. They are staying home. They are not commuting. And a large portion of the population commutes via public transportation. And when you're on public transportation, you're on your mobile device. When you're at lunch, you're on your mobile device. Some of these things are not occurring. Most of these things are not occurring right now. So there's a shift in device usage. People are at their desktops. It's convenient to do their, whether they're personal search or business search from a desktop. I think the other thing to note here is not just is there a shift and change in device usage, but the search result usage from those that are doing searches. So typically mobile device, looking for location-based information, directions, and that kind of stuff, name, address, phone number for a particular business, which the go-to property is Google My Business. The other option is a more organic search result that leads you typically to a business's website. So we've seen this shift from people going to the Google My Business page as a primary destination to going to a business's website, because that has more depth of information and there's a higher likelihood that the information has been updated and is current on a business's website. So you're seeing sort of usage shift back to website versus a Google My Business profile page.
Right.
Yeah, you know, and I would just say that we're in front of our computers, right? All day, every day, as most of us are working from home. And it's a lot easier for us to just pop open a results tab or a Google search and look for, you know, whatever we're looking for. But at the end of the day, I don't need to pick up my phone anymore and do that search that I might have done, you know, eight weeks ago.
Yeah, I think the other thing to note too is like, what can a business do? Well, we've talked about this in across several of our sessions, which is invest back in your website, make sure the information this is just good advice anytime, but make sure it is relevant and pertinent and updated. This shift doesn't mean you shouldn't also be looking at your Google My Business profile and ensuring that you have recent photos in there, your business description is complete, you've made adjustments to indicate what's happening to your products and services as a result of COVID-19. So, you know, it's still an important piece, even though there is a shift, because it will continue to shift back and forth based on businesses opening back up and people becoming more mobile.
I view this as like the perfect time, right, to give your desktop appearance and result a little bit of love, right? It's been a long time since we've had the discussion in the industry about like desktop experience, and you know, the focus for so long has been on mobile because all the obvious reasons. So I think this is a great time in trying to seek out the positives, right? Like look at your appearance, how you appear on a desktop. Many of us have been doing it on a mobile device, but give the desktop experience some love during this time. So yeah, this one was surprising for me to see. Okay, great feedback, guys. Thanks. Let's move on to our next stat. The most common types of queries are related to available service offerings. So Todd, I'd like you to start us out first and just make sure that everybody in the audience is aware of what do we mean by, what is a query, right? What is this question really asking?
Yeah, query is a fancy word for question. You know, we've often referred to Google as a sort of question and answer experience, whether people looking for a location, looking for something to buy, looking for information about something, looking to be educated about something. So those are all entered typically in the form of a question. So the most frequently asked types of questions right now are related to availability of products and services. A great example of that is dentistry in particular. So I know my dentist has rescheduled cleaning, but emergency services is a big one. If I happen to break a tooth, I know my dentist isn't open. I've got to find somebody who can take care of that. So that would be an example of one that's been exponential growth as far as a query.
Yeah, I would relate with my hairdresser, right? I think we've all seen the funny memes on social media that, you know, what are we all going to look like when we come out of this? But it is, I got a text yesterday because I had an appointment scheduled for this week, but it was really nice to know that I didn't have to reach out to them, they reached out to me via text to say, we're going to reschedule, just we got to go through the time at this point, and we'll fit you in as we need to. So, it was again nice to have that first initial contact versus me having to reach out to them.
Yeah. I think this one plays, I remember one of our questions last week was in the realm of, how much is too much, talking about not wanting to come across like kind of heartless promoting my business was the vein of the question. And I think that this kind of tells us all that, you have to do it in the right way. People want to know information about the businesses that they do business with, right? They want to know available hours, available products and services, is pickup available. They want to know all of these things because they're wanting to continue doing businesses with people that they do business with.
Yeah. A couple quick things on this as well as we had talked a little bit about the types of queries and the volume of queries. Clearly, there are businesses that are what I'll call event-based impact. So clearly, businesses are impacted by COVID-19 conditions. There are also businesses that we're seeing, Vivial businesses that we would do business with, that are seeing typical seasonal changes right now. And so we're seeing outdoor contractors, roofers, landscapers, et cetera, seeing typical behavior. The search volume is starting to increase as it does this time of year when people can get outside. So that is expected. I think what's really interesting is that in particular for outdoor services, not only is it trending up again seasonally, but year over year, it's up 23%. That's exponential growth. That's not seasonal growth. That's exponential growth for these types of businesses. If you're in that segment, online advertising and reaching people online is the audience is there. The other thing I want to note is what we've seen over the last 30, 45 days is what I'll call bounce back. So there are businesses that like repair, auto repair, veterinarian services, even restaurants are seeing sort of a dip, but now there's a bounce back because people are asking questions about, are they available? What pivots have they made to their services? And they still need the services. They just need to know how have they changed in light of current state.
Yeah, I think certainly we saw that, I think in the first several weeks when this hit, there was almost like a stall, right? So I'm thinking about that bounce back, Todd, that you're talking about. And I think that sometimes consumers are no different, just need time to digest, like what's the impact to me, right? And I think we are starting to see the tides of some of that turning, which is good to see. Okay, let's go into our next stat. 49% increase in the average conversion rate for Google search ads. So this is an interesting one. Erin, give us your perspective on this.
Well, personally, my shopping habits haven't really slowed down during this time. And I've done a lot of research on things that I'm looking for. For instance, I went out and bought an exercise bike because of the situation. It obviously escalated, as we had to stay at home. So it was a quicker buying cycle. And I was able to click on those ads at the top because they were right there. It answered the need I had. And I was able to put it in my cart. And at that time, I was still able to go to the store and get it. But at the end of the day, I did all of that process, right there online. I've bought a dishwasher and a new rug. Like I said, it hasn't slowed down. But at the end of the day, it's those search ads that spoke to me. I was able to, like I said, click on them fast and make that conversion rate.
Yeah. Todd, thoughts?
I think as we've said, the demand for some services has increased exponentially. What hasn't increased, in fact, in many cases has decreased, is there are fewer businesses temporarily spending money on paid advertising. So if the pool of advertisers is lower and the search volume is stable or increasing, there are fewer people that get to take advantage of that from a paid search standpoint. So the click-through rates are going up and conversion rates are going up for those that have stayed consistent. At least that's what I'm seeing with Vivial clients. And I think this stat in particular is a Google universal stat. So it is bigger and broader than just our client base.
Yeah. I also think too, like one of the things that we always talk about in this space, and one of the things that many of the businesses that we work with are challenged by, and businesses in general, is, how do you figure out that online versus offline conversion, right? And so that speaks to, you shop online, but then ultimately the consumer comes in the store to make the purchase. And sometimes you struggle with kind of monitoring that. We all know the reality is less and less consumers can now go in the store to purchase. And so as I see this stat also, I think about, potentially higher conversions due to the fact that it's fully happening online, given the current state, which I think, because a conversion here is really talking about a call or a sale or a form fill or anything on your website. So clearly just the fact that people are on their computers more, I think obviously plays into this stat also. Okay. Great. I think we have our last one coming up, and this is in the world of social media. So 32% of internet users are spending more time on social media as of March. So Todd, I'd like to turn this over to you to start. I think this is kind of a no-brainer that people are on social media more, hungry for information, looking. What can a local business do to capitalize on this audience?
What is happening is not only is the duration of time increasing, but the frequency of time is increasing, and the engagement is increasing, because with that frequency and longer duration, people are posting their own content and interacting with content that is posted. So you're seeing engagement rates go up. So if you haven't already acknowledged that social media is a great way to reach a target audience, there is a larger audience now than there was a month ago. So as a business, consider that in your strategy in terms of reaching target audiences. I would say for those that are doing it, now is a really great time to relook at how they've defined their target audience and make some refinements to that based on the availability of the products and services that they're offering.
Yeah, for sure.
Todd, I would add to that, this is also a really good time to engage with your audience, as you mentioned, but what I mean by that is try to get them to become your advocates, right? So I've been seeing a lot more of the asking for recommendation posts on social, and it's awesome to see those businesses get a referral, right? They get tagged, their Facebook business page shows up in the comments. So that's essentially that person asking for a recommendation is getting all of these options, but at the end of the day, they're becoming an advocate for that business, right? Or the consumers of that business. So it's another great way to just grow and strengthen your audience.
Yeah, I think that's a great thought. We talk often about finding your customers, meeting them where they are, right? And there's no question with everything that's going on, your audience is likely on social media, right? And so I think figuring out the best way to give them information, engage with them. We talk about like responding to reviews, responding to comments, seeking feedback during this time. It's a great time to kind of restart that discussion and engage, right? I know in a couple of the last sessions that we've had, we've talked about like maintaining that connection with your existing customers, and social is a fantastic way to do it. I follow a number of businesses online. Probably that's an obvious statement, but I've noticed almost across the board, all of them have kind of raised the game and raised the bar in terms of what they're doing, which is really fantastic to see. So, it's like take advantage of, I guess, of what you can. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that we've advised clients on, and I've seen just organically happening, is cross promotion of businesses. So it's businesses supporting other businesses, right? So if it's a local cycle, Cycle Bar happens to be a name of a place that I frequent, and they have partnered with a local retail store to offer discounts on clothing to their audience base. It's a great connection. Or I've seen people offer gift cards to local restaurants. So supporting each other is good for everybody.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of that also. And I love to see that it's not just like a group of restaurants, but to your point, Todd, like you can have like a t-shirt company and a restaurant and a cycle place. And I love that, that kind of like local spirit, I think is great during times like this for sure. Okay, I think that is all the stats that we have to share. So we've taken up about 20 minutes. We're going to save the last 10 minutes for questions and answers. As I mentioned at the start, we've already got a number of questions in from all of you, so appreciate you submitting those in advance. That's definitely helpful. But if you have a question as we go, something that it can either be on the topics that we've discussed or just put us on the spot. It can be anything in general. Keep it in digital marketing world is probably the best. But Put it in the chat and we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can. So with that, let me go to the first question. How do I target coronavirus specific searches to make sure my business shows up? For example, many people are at home doing home improvement projects. I'm a local hardware store with supplies they may need to complete those tasks. Todd, I'll turn this one to you.
There's a couple of tactics. Some of these I've mentioned previously, but within your Facebook profile, pinning a post to the top that outlines product availability, service availability. Same feature exists within your Google My Business profile, within your website. Certainly take this time to highlight products and services that are relevant in this time. Some tactics, I would say that what we've noticed is when people are searching for product and service impacts, they're just typing COVID. They're not doing -19. They're not typing in coronavirus. So from a keyword standpoint, if your content is referencing current state of affairs, COVID is what people are shortening it to. We've just noticed that as well.
Yeah. Obviously, updated content on your website is always a key one as well. So using, like Todd, to your point, the keywords like COVID or anything in this temporary time would be helpful also.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next question. Erin, I'm going to throw this one to you. As a retailer that does not have an online store, but is doing curbside or delivery, what are the best ways I can get that information out there to potential customers?
Yeah, great question. I would say first and foremost, post it in all the places that we've been discussing over the last couple weeks, right? So on your website, you don't necessarily have to have a store as you mentioned, but you can put that content out there. The other easy way to do it would be on social media, right? So if you're able to maybe take some pictures with, say, your smartphone, they have some great filters now of things that you can sell, post those out on social media. That is a free thing, right? It's a free service. Ideally, you could reach out to us and we can help you get that ball rolling and amplify that, take it to the next level. But at the end of the day, like those are some quick and easy ways to talk about your services that you are offering and then even start that process of becoming an e-commerce business.
I think it's a great time to experiment a little bit. So if you've shied away from using your phone and recording a 15-second video for your business and posting it, now's a great time to try that. I would also say that the other way to get that information out there is put a little money behind boosting a post. That way you're reaching an audience that may be interested in that information that typically wouldn't see it if they weren't actively looking for it.
I think that, Erin, in speaking to, I'm looking at that first part of the question, obviously was they don't currently have the online store or a current way of doing this. And I think you both kind of mentioned this, but like, I think if this time has taught us anything, right, it's to think differently maybe than we ever have before. And so I think we all know at this point that this is not going to be like this light switch that gets turned on or off and that we're magically just going to go back to what it was before. So I think as a business, exploring ways to think about how you can do business more online, how you can be responsive for these things, because I don't think that this is something that I would call like a short-term fix. I think that, this notion of like contactless delivery or any of these things could stick around much longer than the height of what we're living in right now. So I think it's prudent for a business to think through those options and think not only now what it is, but what it could also be in the future, which is likely much different than what it was historically.
Yeah, location-based retail sales won't go away. It will be more special than it was considered in the past, but you're right. The other thing that isn't going away is online transactions, whether it's actually purchasing a product or just making a payment.
Right. Okay, great, thanks. Todd, I'm going to turn this next one to you. I service customers across 2 states, one of which is planning to start reopening businesses, but the other is still staying locked down. How can I address both in my messaging?
Yes, address both in your messaging.
Well, give more.
What will be helpful is there's a number of ways you can do that. One is to have a page that is dedicated to updates for your business, a single page that lists everything out. And there's lots to be talked about there, The other option is to have different pages for different states that are very location-based and relevant to the current state within that particular product, service, market, that particular audience. So the more relevant the information on the page, the easier it is for Google to index that, the easier it is for other people to find and understand current state of affairs.
Yeah. I think that most consumers now also, I tend to say, like, it's okay to focus on both and to say, like, for those in this state, this is the plan, and for those in this state, that's the plan. I think everybody is, very aware of kind of the differences that can exist, and it's kind of, that part at least has become somewhat normal. So yeah, I think, make sure to communicate effectively to both audiences. Don't alienate one of them, I guess would be my biggest take on that.
This is a great example of, as you're looking at your advertising strategy, this is called audience segmentation. So if one state is in a different condition than another state, then make sure you have 2 campaigns with the appropriate messaging.
Right. Yeah. And that holds true to one of the benefits we've always talked about with digital marketing, which is the availability to target. This would be a great example of how you can do it, down to zip code, location, state. So you can very effectively market to both audiences with the relevant message and not have it be something that doesn't relate to them. So yeah, totally agree. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Erin, I'm gonna have you start us off on this one. This one is in regards to social platforms. My business is on multiple social platforms. Are there specific ones that I should be focusing more on now than others?
Right. So I would first ask, who is that ideal customer of yours, and try to figure out where it is that they're shopping. We have a mix of B2C and B2B businesses that we work with. And I would say typically if it's a B2B business, we do have a stronger focus on LinkedIn, right? It's that networking, business, professional network. So we would do some paid ads over there to really target the exact people that they're looking to be in front of. But the large majority of those B2C really see benefit in your Facebook and your Instagram ads. And to Todd's point earlier, there's some really awesome, targeting options that you can choose who your ads go in front of. So you're really trying to drill down into, getting in front of your target audience. So I guess the short answer would be all of them are going to be beneficial. But I think really focusing on who you're wanting to be in front of will help you kind of narrow that focus, if that's what you're looking for.
Todd, anything to add?
I think it's about format of information. So, and the type of business that you're in. So it's a hard question to answer without really knowing what your business is. So we were talking with a customer yesterday, and they're in the B2B space, and we said, focus on LinkedIn. Make that your primary point of focus. If you are limited in resources and budget, then focus on that, because that is a better platform for B2B marketing. If you have a tangible product that can be shipped, Facebook advertising is a great way. I mean, I get targeted all the time. I bought T-shirts the other day on a Facebook ad. I would never have thought about that. I would have just gone to the local store and bought T-shirts. So I think it's a nature of product that you have. That will direct you where to focus.
Yeah, I always have to mention, GMB or Google My Business doesn't always necessarily fit squarely in the social space, but it is definitely a place that customers can interact with you and engage with you, write reviews. And I think that, making sure, and we've talked about this, I think GMB has been mentioned, I think, in every session that we've had this month because of the importance, because people are searching there, and making sure that you've got, let's call it, your house in order. You've got your updated information, your updated hours, recent pictures, recent content. We're seeing, again, for going back to the data, for clients that we work with, those that are active, we're seeing a 22% increase in the way our customers are ranking in the map section, right? Which is a very, very powerful place. That's clearly on the first page of Google. And so many of the clients that we work with obviously look towards those rankings as a way, not always an easy way, but a way to get on the first page of Google. So I think, I agree. I think it's having your house in order across all the social platforms and making sure that you've got the right information, you've got consistent information, and then depending on where that right target audience is, and I think Erin and Todd, you both mentioned the paid aspects of it, putting a little bit of dollars behind it to make sure that your message is relevant and found. Erin, Todd, anything else to add before we close it out?
We covered a lot today. It was a good session.
We did.
Don't be afraid to experiment. That would be my advice. Try it. Don't be intimidated by it.
I would agree, most definitely. Well, with that, that brings an end to our third session. Please join us again next week for our fourth and final session of the month, where we'll be sharing additional information for you to help you through this. Thanks everybody for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you.